Welcome to Supply Chain Now, the voice of global supply chain. Supply Chain Now focuses on the best in the business for our worldwide audience, the people, the technologies, the best practices, and today's critical issues, the challenges and opportunities. Stay tuned to hear from those making global business happen right here on Supply Chain Now.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Scott Luton and, of course, special guest host Tony Sciarrotta here with you on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's show. Tony, how you doing?
I'm doing great today, Scott. I'm feeling special.
Well, hey, I am too. We got a dear friend back with us, and we're tickled. We love our repeat guests here, right? Supply Chain Now, and this is a good one. And better yet, she joins us as we continue our popular reverse logistics leadership series here at Supply Chain Now. So, Tony, as you know, we're going to be featuring a business leader that we've enjoyed learning from on a couple of past episodes, an individual that's doing big things, big things in the industry, especially in the reverse logistics space. Tony, are you buckled in and ready for a good show here today?
Absolutely, with one of my favorite people as well.
Wonderful. So with that said, let's introduce our featured guest here today. Our special guest has been leading and innovating at HP for more than 36 years. Get ready for some great stories and some wonderful business and leadership advice. Please join me in welcoming Julie Ryan, Senior Manager, North America Returns and Remarketing with HP. Julie, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Glad to be here and with the two of my dear friends.
Well, great to have you back. Now, we can't, these remote interviews aren't as fun as the ones we were having in person there in Vegas a couple of years ago, twice now. So, but we'll make that happen again soon. How's that sound?
I agree. I like it.
And always, Tony, red 19. If you play those roulette games, red 19. Is that right, Tony?
I don't know if my mother would agree with that. She'd probably say black 32. So I don't know.
Okay, red 19, black 32. I love that. But hey, kidding aside, I really enjoy our previous conversations out there at the RLA conference in Vegas. It's held every year. So, Julie, great to have you back. And with that said, though, Tony and Julie, we got a couple of new little tweaks to the Julie Ryan story that I've uncovered for this interview here. And Julie, I want to start with, you didn't share this with the last couple of conversations. I understand that when you were growing up, you moved more than 9 times. You attended 3 different high schools, lived in 7 different states. So just hearing those numbers and thinking about my upbringing, I can only imagine how challenging that was, right? So tell us how that experience impacted your ability and your personal outlook on change and how you handle change.
Yeah, well, as a child, though it was hard to leave friends, it was always exciting to go to a new city and see new sights. I grew up, most of that relocation was in the Midwest until my senior year in high school, actually was down to Texas,
okay,
where I've stayed. In my teen years, though, let's just say I wasn't really keen on my parents, specifically my dad, who continued to get progress his career and get relocated in his corporate sales job. But it wasn't until I landed in Texas, graduated from university, married my college sweetheart, and landed a job at a dream company, new startup Compact Computer Corporation, that I actually took the time to reflect on, how all those moves impacted me. And everyone knows change is constant. And I'm by nature an introverted person. And I think by moving so much, I had to learn to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. It taught me to leverage and apply my skills and my talents to fit in, especially as a kid and a teen. Be active. I wanted to be active in school and in the clubs and the association. It also helped me stay grounded. And I've applied those principles to my professional career within HP and even in the industry and conferences. And now one of the things I embrace with the lens is a lens of how can I make this better when I face change rather than resist it?
That is it's beautiful simplicity to your answer there, because as we all know, and Tony, I want to get your response to what Julie just shared. Change is constant, as she shared, and it's happening faster and faster, and it's almost like our ability and our appetite to handle change and our ability to digest it has had to continue to grow and improve as well. Tony, your thoughts to what Julie just shared?
Oh, I think that there's an amazing amount of resilience there with Julie and with what she's gone through. And I have to say, leadership, whether you're leading 10 or 50 people, comes from having dealt with so many different situations in your life. Mm-hmm. If you just walk down the straight and narrow, when you run into a bump in the road, you don't know what to do. And Julie clearly has run through the bumps and knocked them over and kicked them out of her way, and really proud of that approach to it, especially in the high speed, high change, high tech industry over the last 30 years. It's just phenomenal. Yeah, the change is unbelievable. And moving 9 times, 7 times, 3 different high school, that's just unbelievable.
It is.
Yeah.
Hey, and I want to add to that. So Julie, one quick follow-up question, because I think the other thing when I was reading and preparing for our interview here today, the other thing that stood out in my brain as I was thinking about how much you moved in your upbringing is, I bet you had to develop skill sets that allowed you to meet people, build rapport, and do it regularly with a lot of new folks throughout that part of your journey.
Right. And as a kid, and I not necessarily at that point was a leader, because I had to get and meet new friends. Mm-hmm. And it really did teach me how to adapt, how to be personable, and get into those friend groups that I wanted to be a part of, versus those groups that come say, here's the newbie, let's grab them.
I'm so glad you shared that. Relationship building, even in this digital era, as we've learned in the last few years, is more important than ever before. And those folks, in my mind at least, really stand out, and there's ability that can kind of create genuine relationships with real rapport. And the relationships are there on the good days and on the bad days, because you got to have both.
That's
so
right.
Thanks so much for sharing your perspective there. And one last question. One last question. Of the 7 states, what was your favorite, one of your favorite places that you lived?
I would go back to Chicago in a heartbeat.
Oh, man. What a great city. I'm with you. You. All right. So, and Tony, I know you love Chicago. You and I both enjoy good food and good music, and Chicago's got plenty of that and then some, huh?
It certainly does. I like going to events there. I have to share a secret, Scott, a little bit of what Julie's referencing. I have a tendency to be willing to speak at events that are in cities where I would like to go. And this goes way back. I got to do this with Phillips, and Chicago is certainly a favorite, going out looking for the best pizza, and of course Portello's for the great dogs, and maybe a Cubs game or two in the middle there. So great city.
You.
Absolutely.
Thank you for making me starving as I think about some of the things I've eaten in Chicago. Okay, so let's keep pressing forward with Julie Ryan here. So Julie, more than 36 years at HP, with 26 of those years in reverse logistics. Man, the stories I bet you could tell. And you got to write a book at some point, because you got plenty of anecdotes and stories you can share here. Maybe some you can't share here. But tell us, for starters, about your current role at HP.
So currently I have North America, which is Canada and US. Returns, it's an end-to-end organization. So when HP is predominantly an indirect company. But anyone that's purchasing products from us directly has return privileges. So they come back to us. My organization authorizes those returns, then the physical operations of receiving it, issuing credit, refurbishing, remanufacturing the product, putting it in a warehouse, and selling it as a certified refurbished product.
Tony, based on your experience, both with leading the RLA and then some what you did at Phillips, a lot of that, I bet it brings back memories. I bet, Tony. Any thoughts about Julie's current role there at HP?
Uh, Absolutely, and Julie's perspective is a lot like mine. The brand is yours, and you have responsibility for it.
Right.
So it's not just a mentality of liquidate the stuff, get rid of it when it comes back. It's the mentality of take it back, make it right, make it look good, and then own the relationship of going back to the consumer a second time. That's Julie's a perspective. Her company supports it. It's the right approach. It's what we did at Phillips. It was easier maybe to give an allowance and say we don't want it back, but that's not the right answer. And I appreciate Julie and she fought for this too, because when you deal with some of these major companies, Julie, they want an allowance. They demand it sometimes, and HP and your group sticks to its guns, takes it back.
Julie, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond to that.
No, it's our brand is $1 billion logo, and it's very, very important that we protect that. There's a lot of investment that goes in when on a new sale, but even more important when it becomes a secondary device, protecting who it's sold to, the price margin, and avoiding gray market and sustainability. Keeping it from the landfill.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because more and more, thankfully, one of the great trends out there is buyers and consumers value that more and more. And of course, that's a trend we're all leveraging out in the industry to drive more change faster, right? Good change faster. All right. So 26 years in reverse logistics. And you know what? We're breaking cardinal rules around here. As you may know, Julie, and I know, Tony, Greg and I like to keep it more than 20 years, right? We never go over because we age all of ourselves, but we broke those rules. But 26 years in reverse logistics alone, that's just by wrapping our head around that, you were a trailblazer in, before reverse logistics was recognized like it is today. And I know that's an ongoing a battle we're all waging, Tony, to get more and more recognition formally for it. But who or what, Julie, influenced your journey and got you in to reverse logistics almost 30 years ago?
It was more of a what. So I was a project manager at the time and working at Compaq, and was asked to lead a project to centralize what was receiving, remanufacturing, and sales in 3 different areas, physical areas in the city of Houston. So centralize that, bring it into one location. And as I was doing that, I really got intrigued by the business. And once we were implementing it, there was a gap. There was a need for someone in business planning and strategy, set some accountability. And so I created the role, interviewed for the role, got accepted for the role, and have not left the space.
That's cool. That's good news, Tony. That's more than good news. That's a great thing. I mean, not only is that, let me think out loud for a second. Not only is that seeing the opportunity and putting in the headlock, jumping on with both feet and running with it, but 26 years of driving change and innovation and improvement. What an incredible track record. Tony, your thoughts on how Julie talked about what got her into reverse logistics?
I love it. Julie goes back to the time where, like we said, there was rarely someone in charge of returns, rarely someone in charge of what we called reverse logistics. And the influencing skills needed for that role. It's one of the great things I admire about Julie is clearly, and the project manager background. I mean, look at me. I came out of sales and they said, go fix the returns problem. Julie's like, I see a problem. I'm going to create the role and fill it. And that's a great story.
Agreed. Hey, let me ask you, Julie, I meant to ask you this pre-show, but being a project manager, did you have more of a technical degree path in school in early part of your career?
No, I had a finance background. I have a business degree in finance. So I have a process mind, very process oriented. So that's what intrigued me going into project management from a sales ops role. But then I quickly said, I got to own this. I got to get in this space.
That's even better, Julie.
Yeah.
And I love the answer even better because combine your finance background prior to 26 years of doing big things in reverse logistics to what Tony said. He had a sales background to what we know out in the industry more and more. We got lots of engineers and data technologists and, that are all finding their way into reverse logistics. I think that's a beautiful broad spectrum of different folks from all walks of life and professions that can find their way to create value in this emerging was too strong in this growing industry of reverse logistics. Tony, your quick response there.
I was just thinking, Scott, of saying that, we talk many times about talent and nobody grows up wanting to be a reverse logistics professional or returns director. Not yet. Exactly. But here's a clear case of someone who 26 years ago decided I do want to be a reverse logistics person and own it. And I also know, Julie, if your background is finance, you're one of those people smart enough, because I didn't figure this out. You're one of those people smart enough to see what the impact is to the bottom line and build the value case for that role. The challenge at Philips and many companies is, okay, we're losing money here. So, what are you going to do to stop us from losing money? It's like all you can do is reduce the loss overall, but you add value. And you clearly knew how to build that financial case. I'm proud of that.
It's so needed, especially in reverse logistics, returns management, and global supply chain. The financial professional and financial leadership's doing is so needed. And we're seeing more and more, as y'all might be seeing it as well, more and more folks that come in the industry are getting, minors or dual degrees in the financial side is covered. That's a great thing for a lot of different reasons. Okay. So I just mentioned returns management. So some of our new listeners to this series, some of the new folks that may be relatively new to reverse logistics, they may not know that returns management is a big part of the overall reverse logistics universe. So question for you, Julie. This is one of my favorite questions that Tony and I are going to pose to you here today is how has your career impacted your buying and returns behavior as a consumer? Because we're all consumers.
Yeah, I am extremely proud and very loyal to a refurbished product. And having firsthand of manufacturing and remanufacturing product and processes, I strongly believe in the quality of a certified refurbished product. And I've been in many situations, both at work with our IT department and actually in retail stores defending a refurbished product over a new. And I'll look, if I'm going to shop for a device, I'll try and find something that's refurbished because I know it's been touched and remanufactured independently versus an assembly line.
I love that, Julie. Yeah. Tony, what would you add to what'd you hear Julie say there? And then what would be your addition to it?
I tend to agree with Julie. I wish I could get my wife over to this side of the fence regarding refurbished. And we really have to work on better terminology. I'm starting to like the term pre-loved, at least in the apparel space. That works well. And then, renewed. We need better terminology. Vintage. Vintage doesn't apply in electronics, but we need some important, good new language to communicate what Julie's saying about the fact that she's right. It's been touched by hand, and somebody paid it extra attention that the factory line did not pay, and that's a valid reason to go in that direction. And I mean, there's more used cars being sold than new. And certainly it applies there. The certified pre-owned term, I'm liking that a little bit for electronics. We'll see if we can get that down the road a little bit because the auto industry's done well with it. But yeah, there's more, Scott, there's more used mobile phones being sold than new.
Right. That's right.
So it's a change.
It is. And I love the pre-loved phraseology. And here's a cool thing that is going to happen too, as reverse logistics as a formally recognized sector or functional area continues to grow its roots, is just like financial pros like Julie and sales pros like Tony and engineering and technical pros, the marketing pros will also come to the industry. And Tony, that's where we're going to be working on some of these phraseology, so we can tell a better story. Yep. It's coming.
Agreed.
And the other thing I was going to point out to Julie's comments there about finding that pre-loved and really working that muscle as a consumer. I think the other thing that I've admired from a lot of these conversations is we all know that consumers are more educated and they've got more data at their fingertips. However, that hasn't stopped a lot of consumers from not doing their homework and making rapid decisions because it's easy to return stuff. And I think one of the things I think about in my own consumer journey, Julie and Tony, is I like to do my homework and not do a quick reaction, buy, even after a glass of delicious wine in the evenings where it might be easier to do so. I really like, especially for bigger purchases, and especially while more things are being used and sold in the re-economy, like both of y'all have pointed out, still, there's not quite a great replacement that can help us put the industry in a better place as just making sure that you're buying what you need and you're not just carelessly adding to the tidal wave of returns that a lot of good people and companies are finding ways of doing better things with. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to HP for a second, Julie. We're touching Julie's story. We're talking consumer. We're talking trends in reverse logistics. I want to get back to HP because HP has been passionate about sustainability and and becoming more circular in the circular economy. So what are some of the outcomes, Julie, that you're most proud of from a company standpoint?
So both, I mentioned, starting at 26 years ago at Compaq and Hewlett Packard, both have long invested in very mature refurbished and recycling worldwide organizations. The organization I lead represents actually over 70% of the worldwide returns.
Wow.
And I'm really proud of the accomplishments the team achieves. Reuse is in ours and our outsourced partners' DNA. But in particular to HP, over the last couple of years, sustainable impact is at the heart of our strategy. We've publicly communicated what our goals are, taking urgent and decisive actions to achieve net zero carbon emissions across the entire value chain, giving back to forests more than we take, and innovating our products and services for more circular economy.
So, Tony, when you think about that approach, and especially where Julie started that response, it's in our DNA, right? Yeah. So I hear that when I hear things like that. I like saying it's in my bones a lot to our team here at Supply Chain Now. But it's in the culture. It's in our mindset. It's what we think about every single day when we jump out of bed and before we wrap up our day at the end. So, Tony, speak to that and some of those impressive goals that Julie and current outcomes that Julie's sharing.
So that it's harder these days because business is somewhat like our government. People don't believe in them as much. They get too cynical, and when you hear this story from HP, you're like, yeah, that's a lot of words. But I've seen the videos. Okay, I've not only heard the stories, I've seen the videos of their people going down to a place like Haiti and finding a way to recycle plastic and build a new computer with it. And it's a commitment to the people, not just the process, but to the people. So that's a culture shift. And clearly it's in the entire HP culture. I'm not saying 100% of the people blindly follow this, but I think 100% of the people understand that's the company's goal. You can be cynical all you want, but at the end of the day, let's make sure we're doing our best. And we don't have enough companies like that. And again, really proud of HP because I've seen those videos and that commitment. One of her colleagues, one of Julie's colleagues, Patrick Gibbs, showed his adventures going to, I think he was in Haiti, Julie, if I'm correct, with that massive project of recycling. And and by the way, that's a brick in the wall, a brick in the road that we have to run over because sometimes using recycled parts creates issues that manufacturers run into when they're trying to sell things as new. And we've all been around that circle a few times. So somehow we need some help to say, what HP is doing and recycling old plastic to put it into new products should be okay and not be looked on as something negative. And that's changing our culture, not just the HP culture, but the rest of the culture. It's okay to do that. And that's the drive that, Julie said it's $1 billion company. I think it's a multi-billion dollar commitment to the planet and to the environment.
So 2 quick thoughts there. I told y'all Tony's a music fan. Did you hear him say, you slipped and say another brick in the wall? So a little shout out to all the Pink Floyd fans out there.
Yes.
And then the other thing I want to ask you about, Julie, as a quick follow-up. Tony cited the Haiti initiative with your colleague, Patrick. And from what I understand in doing our homework about who you are and how you lead and how you get things done, innovation is synonymous, Julie, with your approach. So question, with all the creativity and real innovation, not lip service that you see folks talk about, but what, deeds, not words, what you see in actions, just to do the things that we're describing, it takes just endless creativity and lots of experimentation. And so when you get something right, like Tony's talking about in Haiti, how do y'all celebrate that as an organization? How does that play out? Because that seems to be a ripple effect and just creates more like a force multiplier for you to apply more and more creativity to other areas of the business.
Well, it's not done in a silo. It's not just done within the offices of HP. We embrace not only our partners, our channel partners, because they're key to making sure they've got a sustainable impact, but also the communities. And so when we're talking about Haiti, we're finding those communities that we can benefit and penetrate and impact together as a team. And so then we want to communicate that and share that broadly. One, to share how we and others can have that kind of impact across the whole human rights and digital equity.
Well said, Julie. Very well said. And I love, it sounds like to me that you celebrate these wins as an ecosystem, right? With all stakeholders and especially the impact. So let's shift gears for a second. We broached the whole talent piece earlier in the conversation. And I want to pick, Julie, I want to pick your brain a little bit more here based on your perspective. And of course, we'll get Tony's comments as well. But how can we develop more talent in the reverse logistics pipeline, Julie?
We talked about this at the RLA in February in our board meeting, and it's a reality, but it's an exciting reality that returns and reverse are actually relevant now. Because of the emphasis on sustainability and circularity, the companies, especially, I see it at HP now, where we're actually creating, we are in the middle of creating 2 worldwide organizations to focus on this. That hasn't been the case, and that's across the board. And I think that's where how it becomes relevant for just in order to promote and influence sustainability, but people's careers.
Tony, what would you add to that? So the newfound relevance, let's all take a moment and celebrate that as an ecosystem, right? And new and enhanced and continuing, gradually growing relevance, which I think is a great thing for global business and a lot more. Tony, what else would you add to that? What Julie shared about developing more talent in the pipeline?
Well, I think with Julie's background being finance, I think there's a recognition that these things are financial. There are numbers involved, and you just have to learn how to make them come out the right way, in the sense of not trying to cheat them, but trying to show the end-to-end kind of opportunity and costs that are out there. And it takes more than just marketing or salespeople to do that. It really does take somebody with some financial background. I think that many companies need to, if they don't have somebody like Julie advocating for the importance of this role, they need to go out and say, this is important. Let's find the best people we can and put them in it, make them learn it. If they don't know it, make them learn it, because it's not like there's a degree for it, right? Generally speaking. So pick somebody, and it's not hard to find passionate people like Julie. They're out there. But it's a matter of redirecting the passion. So it's clear that the talent pool is improving. But I also look at the fact, Scott, that you are a voice of the industry, and we appreciate that and love it, that you actually pay attention to not just the supply chain forward, but the reverse, the dark side, as we say. Maybe it's too dark for people, but the fact that you keep promoting it is giving people a hint. Your path isn't just on a forward channel. Take a look at the reverse opportunities that are there that are great. And we hope to get more talent. And I know that Julie and her role and some of our other board members also do a mentorship, Scott. They look at people within their company and they try to find somebody with that passion and convert it into a position. I'd like to think that the days of just jumping from role to role in a company can slow down, because an opportunity like this has so many other forks you can split off in. But you don't have to jump into a different silo. You can stay in yours, and you're overlapping everything. That's the key about reverse and circular and sustainability. It overlaps so many areas. And that's exciting to me, and it's exciting to Julie, and not enough other people. But Scott, keep spreading the word. Let's get more people to see all those opportunities.
It's critical for the path forward for a lot of the reasons y'all both have mentioned. Because as Tony, as you like to say, going back a couple of years now, when you allow consumers to return stuff, don't be surprised when they do. So we got to be smarter and more innovative for the sake of all the gains we're trying to make from a sustainable and just good for the earth. And good for the collective ecosystem in all parts of the world type of perspective. All right. So I really, Tony and Julie, appreciate both of your thoughts and been there and done it, thoughts and perspective on creating more talent and more diverse talent coming into the reverse logistics space. Both of those things are really important. So let's talk about, Julie, advice you might have for newcomers in the industry, especially women. So I'm going to get you to respond to that first, Julie, and then we're going to talk about a really cool role that you embraced not a few months ago. So Julie, give us advice first.
Well, like we've just been talking about, and Tony mentioned, the reverse space is so broad. I use me as an example. I've held roles in strategy and planning and operations and remarketing and sales and now leadership. So there is, it's not that, it's a manufacturing world. Many roles are in supply chain, but there are some, quote unquote, sexy roles that are typically roles that unfortunately women gravitate to. And I say unfortunate because women are very skilled and leaders. And, our senior, we have a senior VP who's over worldwide logistics as a female. So one of the things that I guess from an advice to a woman is it's such a broad field, and it's an opportunity to take your education and your skills and build a lifelong career and do many different things. Like Tony said, and never leave that space. One of my favorite quotes that I learned that I share from a woman is, there's room for everyone at the table. Everyone, regardless of gender and race and background, brings something different at the table. As a female, I make sure I'm not only at the table, but I have a voice, and I ensure I'm heard. Yep. And that's one of the things I always share with women and especially people starting their careers.
That is such a critical lesson and piece of advice that listeners have got to embrace wherever you are in your career, right? Because as much as everyone leans on mentors and advocates and nominators and folks that bring you into conversations and bring opportunities and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's like what Julie just shared. You've got to, oftentimes it's you have got to share that voice and be heard. And that's okay. So it's more than okay. It's got to happen. It's got to happen to maximize and optimize the opportunities you'll get in this journey. So Julie, what a great call out. Tony, get your response to that first, and then I'm going to ask you about a really cool role that Julie filled here recently.
Well, I just want to point out that HP has been on my board since I took over, and it's been 3 women from HP have been in the role. And I had to probably beg Julie a little bit to do this and stay with us, because she is one of 12 board members. She's the only woman on the board. And I have to tell you, I hear her voice more than most of the rest of them, because it's important and it's experienced and it comes from a different perspective. And that's critical. And I think I need to tell the story at this point, Scott, that we came up with this concept of there's not a lot of women in reverse logistics. They generally are the lower level talent. But we said, okay, time for Women in Reverse Logistics luncheon. Julie was our first speaker. And I've made the comment, it was an iceberg in that room, because it was February in Las Vegas and they had the loading dock doors open, and the room where we were serving a warm lunch that turned cold very quickly was where Julie had to speak to only about 50 women at the time. Flash forward to this year, and our speaker was in front of over 100 women in a 3-4 year time period. So women are more entering this space or being appointed, whatever's happening to them, it doesn't matter. But the recognition that there's a lot more of them, and really appreciate that, and appreciate that Julie was the cheerleader for that at the beginning.
It's important that it happens, is what I heard you say, Tony. However we make it happen. I mean, it's good that we all learn how that happens so we can do more of it, rinse and repeat, and have bigger outcomes. But and I got my time frame wrong. So Julie, this is a few years ago. So that with that genesis, it led to where that event has grown to. And the reason it was so cold, I bet, Tony, is because Julie was gonna bring fire and excitement and fireworks to the stage. So we know that what the hotel was getting ready for. But Julie, thank you for being that. As I shared with y'all, and y'all probably, I'm preaching to the choir, I know, but we've been, obviously, I think we're approaching episode 1300 or something like that. So we've had a lot of these different conversations with folks across, the whole career spectrum. Some of them are in their earlier stages. Some of them are, C-level, and some of them have recently retired, all points in between. But a recurring theme, especially with folks from a variety of walks of life, is they got to be able to see it. It helps them to see someone filling the role they want. And it helps them encourage, to take the steps to become the same thing, right? And to realize those dreams. And Julie, I appreciate you doing that, because that, that fulfilling that role and having that platform undoubtedly has contributed to the cool growth in the space that Tony was speaking to. So Julie, hey, appreciate you doing that. And it was as rewarding for you as it was for Tony?
It was such an honor. And, I spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted to share, and not just me sharing, but it was an incredible forum of engagement and insight from others that were there, and used the word confidence, and just spelled out each letter as it impacts women in leadership, women in supply chain. And it was really impactful, and it really was intentionally shared and really well received.
Outstanding.
Scott, I just want to add, I don't get to know what any of these are like, because we do not allow men in the room. No. It's their own private space. They get to share the way they want to. And I actually got challenged on that by a couple of guys over the years.
I can see that.
But it's like, you know what? We get our own space enough. Usually there's drinking and smoking involved, but this is their space. and the opportunity to, as Julie said, talk back and forth. And I also will say I'm proud of the fact that Julie and Becca and Ingrid talked about their paths that they've gone down, more than the industry per se, but they talked about their path forward, their careers, how they got there, much of what we're saying today. So Julie's sharing some of what she shared in that women's luncheon, but it's just an honor to have the opportunity to keep doing that and to seen it grow. We have a bigger room for them next year, Scott. We can go up to about 150.
Well,
so
and now we actually have a committee, a women's committee within RLA.
We're going to be blinking, and we're going to have really cool halftime performances at this women's luncheon. All right. So as much as I hate to kind of come down a home stretch here, still want to make sure folks know how to connect really with both of y'all. But Julie, Ryan, great to have you back. I think this is either your third or fourth appearance, maybe your first remote. I really enjoyed our in-person conversations. We'll have to make that happen again soon. But how can folks connect with you, whether they want to compare notes on the cool things you are doing at HP, whether they want to compare leadership notes, they want to talk more about your journey into and succeeding in the industry? How can folks connect with you and the HP team?
With me, it's the best to go through LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm happy to talk to people, share about my journey, my role within HP, whether it be curiosity or mentorship. I'm always open to that. For companies who are looking to purchase or sell or get involved in our reverse logistics, our reverse supply chain, the key to managing and working with HP is to be an authorized partner. And it's easy. You get on the hp.com, go down to the bottom of the page, HP partner, and then click on apply.
Okay. It's just that easy. Good stuff there. Julie, great to have you. All right.
Let's not make it sound too easy here. Julie has an incredibly strong network of very qualified, authorized resellers, refurbisher partners. So it may be easy to apply.
I got you.
But the standards for those companies are high, and proud of that. They should be, because they're recreating valuable products. So easy to apply, but Julie set the standards.
Well, and that lens is for purchasing our HP refurbished products. Being a partner and seller. Yeah. As Tony says, we've been a part of RLA for years, active members, and as a result have been able to connect and partner with the very strong outsourced partners who really that is their core strategy is reverse.
Excellent. And Julie, it's a great segue. So Tony, let's just make sure. Tony Sciarrotta with the Reverse Logistics Association. How can folks connect with you and explore being a part of that ecosystem?
Go to the website. It's free to join our community. That one is easy. It's free to join the community. Although I've got some spot checkers now. We don't like the Gmail, Yahoo people anymore. We need real company people. So I'm on the website. It's rla.org, Reverse Logistics Association. Sciarrotta is a tough name. If you see it on your screen and type it into LinkedIn, I'm about the only Sciarrotta out there in the entire world. So you can find me pretty easily, and they can reach me through LinkedIn or through a direct email, tony@rla.org. Yes.
Now that's easy. I love that. And Tony, I got to share a little tip you gave me 4 or 5 years ago. That's also a musical theme is as I was trying to pronounce Tony's last name initially, he's like, Scott, you ever heard the song My Sharona? I'm like, sure, absolutely. He goes, my Sciarrotta, just like that. And it made things so much easier, these countless conversations later. But Tony, a pleasure as always, and appreciate what you are doing at the RLA. All right, so thank you, Tony, for joining us. Thanks so much. Thank you, Julie Ryan, for joining us once again. Really enjoyed the different aspects of your story that I didn't uncover last go round. We hope to have you back with us soon.
Yes, great to be here, and yes, enjoyed it.
Wonderful. All right, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed the conversation as much as I have. So much great actionable insights to take away from this episode. Really, if you're interested in getting in reverse, or if you're already there, or just as you further your career and your leadership development. Lots of great takeaway here. Hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I have. But whatever you do, you know what the challenge is. You got to take something that Julie or Tony shared here, and you got to put it in action, right? Deeds, not words. And on that note, on behalf of our entire team here, Scott Luton challenge you to do good, to give forward, and to be the change. And we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for being a part of our Supply Chain Now community. Check out all of our programming at supplychainnow.com and make sure you subscribe to Supply Chain Now anywhere you listen to podcasts. And follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. See you next time on Supply Chain Now.